All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to walk you through using Claude Code to stand up a new Medusa site. This is all happening live. I haven't tried this before. I even picked a brand that I've never worked with before, Rubik's Cube. I will probably edit just to save some time so you don't have to sit here and watch Claude think. But I just wanted you to see after the recent episode where I told you about how Claude Code is potentially going to really shake up e-commerce platforms. Wanted you to see it firsthand. So I've started Claude Code in a new folder. There's no files in this project yet. And so I'm going to tell Claude, we are building a Medusa.js website for Rubik's Cube. Please review existing website. Come on. Copy and paste. Sometimes it's the simple things that don't work right. All right, I will just type that. Which normally you can copy and paste just fine, so who knows, it could be the screen recorder I'm using is getting in the way. Please review the existing website and match the existing colors design as closely as possible. Create products that match what is currently sold. Set. Build all of this in JS. Use all of your tools. So I am not quite cheating, but I will say I have a number of MCP servers configured. I'll show you some of those here in a second. The most powerful one being Context 7. And if you haven't used Context 7 before, it is a super powerful tool that is out there on the web that will scrape open source and GitHub repositories and documentation and then provide that documentation and code as an MCP server to your LLM. So you probably noticed I had actually searched to confirm they have the Medusa.js documentation in here, and they do. So whenever I tell Claude to use all of your tools, and especially Context 7, which has the Medusa.js documentation and code samples in it. So it'll actually be able to get code snippets, for instance, one that tells it exactly how to install Medusa. It's pretty cool. Context 7 even has some closed source projects. I'm searching the Medusa documentation. It has Adobe Commerce, for instance, in here. So all of the Adobe docs have been pulled into Context 7 and can provide that context to your LLMs like Claude Code. Please make all decisions for me. Building this as an expert e-commerce implementer would build it. Our goal is a proof of concept site running online machine as quickly as possible. This will not be in production. No need for production payment methods, SSL, etc. And now we're Clauding. You'll notice that Claude Code does like to use funny statuses down there. So it's going to create a to-do list for itself, and it's going to analyze the existing Rubik's website, set up the project, create the products, build the custom storefront, and configure shipping and payment methods. So it is using some of those MCP servers, and you can see actually on my screen, this browser window that just opened, that was not me, that was Claude. So it can actually go through and operate the Chrome browser for you or for itself. Now, it doesn't always do a great job. It thinks it's navigating to the product page. Oh, it did. It got the product listing page. There we go. Just a little bit of a lag there. And you'll see that it actually doesn't show you the full output. You can expand it to see it all, but you typically don't need to do that. You'll also notice that I am in what Google for Gemini calls YOLO mode. Claude Anthropic's a little bit more pedestrian. They just call it bypassing permissions mode. Normally, Claude would actually stop and say, is it okay that I run this command? I'm running it in a mode right now where it does not have to stop and ask me. It can just go. And this is actually, there's a lot of people out there that will say in guides or in videos or in podcasts, don't do that. You should always monitor every single step. In reality, most of the people I know that are doing agentic coding, this is how they're working. Now, if you're probably a little bit smarter than me, you're typically running it in a virtual machine or another sandboxed environment so that if it accidentally, say, tries to erase all of your files, you don't lose all of your files. I live life dangerously, so it is actually running directly on my Mac here. So it has actually I tried to install Medusa. It got asked some interactive questions. It didn't quite work right. So it said, you know what? I will just create a setup script to install Medusa. And now it is installing Medusa. And so with Claude, and Anthropic actually just announced some changes that might make this a little bit harder. But with Claude, you can actually spin it up as many times as you want. There is a token limit. I actually have an app that monitors that for me. And you can see how much I've been using Claude once this loads. There we go. And I am sure Anthropic's going to change this at some point, but right now Claude functions on 5-hour sessions. So you can see that my first session started at 8 a.m. today. So we have 2 hours left in the session. You can see how many tokens I have used so far in the session and what this app projects I will use. So far, I've used $62 worth of Claude Code. Been working on some other projects this morning as well. Projects that in this 5-hour span, I'll use $122. And I am currently using the Opus model. Now, that price is if you're paying for it on an API usage basis. There's also subscriptions, $20 a month, $100 a month, and $200 a month. I am on one of those subscriptions, so I'm not actually paying the prices listed there. Now, like I mentioned, you can actually run multiple Claude Code agents. I have 2 running right now. You can even tell Claude to launch its own sub-agents. You can burn tokens pretty fast, and there are people out there, I'm not going to name names, especially since I'm one of them, but you can hear that. There are people out there that have design setups to where they're running 4 or 5 instances of Claude Code at a time, 24/7, and maximizing, making sure they squeeze every token out of their subscription. Anthropic is losing way too much money because of that. So they have announced that apparently that VC money they have isn't unlimited. And so starting at near the end of August, there's also going to be weekly limits. So in addition to these 5-hour sessions and limits within those sessions, there's going to be weekly limits that I think is going to greatly curtail how much you can use Claude Code, which is a little disappointing. And for now, they're saying that if you go above those amounts, you would just have to pay this API pricing, which I've had sessions that were like $400 plus in 5 hours. So I don't think I'll be doing that. I do think the timing is interesting because GPT-5 should be out any day now. And if GPT-5, if OpenAI takes those improvements into their Codex product, which is their competing product to Claude Code, Anthropic may want to reconsider that change because there may be a lot of people looking to move from Claude Code to Codex. Now let's check back in on Claude Code, see what it's doing. So this is really the fun thing is I'm scrolling back up. During that brief conversation we just had, it got Medusa installed. It said, okay, wait, we don't have PostgreSQL. Let's see if we have access to Docker. Oh, we do. Cool. Let's go ahead and create Docker containers. So basically virtual machines on my computer that will run Postgres and Redis. So it has set those up, and it even detected that I already had something running on this port on my machine, reconfigured it, got it up and running. The crazy thing is this can even work on production environments. Not that you would necessarily want to do that. It can work on AWS environments. It will, if it doesn't already have the AWS command line utilities on your machine, it'll even install them so that it can go out there and set up servers for you. So it made sure it had its containers up and running. It decided to run the database migrations. It realized, oh, wait. And this is the interesting thing. A lot of people compare Claude Code to a junior developer, and in most cases, that is pretty accurate. It's a trial and error process. So it's, wait, I tried to run the migrations. They didn't work. Okay, what's going on with Medusa? Oh, I need to build Medusa. Okay, now I need to start the development server. Oh, that didn't work because I need to initialize the database. And so it's not necessarily saying I'm an expert in Medusa and I know exactly what I'm doing. It's more trial and error. And as it hits errors, it's very quick to consult its knowledge base, consult the internet, consult Context 7, find the right solution, and move on. So it has actually built the site, and now it is creating a seed script to create the sample Rubik's Cube site. And there is a lot of red errors on here, but again, it will be a little bit of trial and error as it gets up and running. Sometimes, and this is the interesting thing about agents and just working with these LLMs in general, is they're not deterministic. And what that means is each time you run them, you can get a different result. So I've had times where I hand off a pretty big project like this to Claude Code, and it gets it all right the first time. Like, it comes up with a great plan, it implements the plan, everything's good. Then I've had times where more trial and error, sometimes more error than trial. And that is where I have found that doing all of this in a Git repo, using branches, the standard ways that a developer would work, especially a more senior developer that has some experience, that really translates well to working with Claude Code. And you have to change your way of thinking. You have to be completely and totally willing to throw away a branch and to throw away an approach. And be a lot faster to say, you know what, let's just redo that. Claude Code doesn't do this yet, but OpenAI and their Codex project, they actually have designed it around that concept. You can tell Codex when you give it a task to actually do this task 4 times, and it will launch 4 separate environments with 4 separate instances of the Codex LLM and work 4 different solutions of the problem. And then you can review all 4 and decide which one you like. That way, if one of them, it just hits error after error, gets off onto a path that doesn't work great, you haven't actually lost any time because all 4 of those run in parallel. So that is one of the advantages of Codex. There's also some disadvantages, but this is a Claude Code demo, so I won't dive into those just yet. So it is working on this setup script to get the sample data into Claude Code, or into Medusa rather, for Rubik's Cube. It's interesting. I could actually tell it, no, find the real address for Rubik's Cube, but it's actually setting up a warehouse location on 123 Commerce Street in Los Angeles. That might even be a valid Los Angeles zip code. I'm not going to Google for it, but it sounds California-ish. All right, so it has written a 711-line script to seed the initial data into Medusa. And apparently it tried to create a new entry for the United States. There already is a United States entry. Again, a lot of trial and error. And there's actually a timer down here that shows us that we've spent 634 seconds, so a little over 10 minutes. Now, normally I wouldn't sit here and watch this. I would be working on something else. Like I said, lots of times I'll have multiple Claude Code instances running, and those are all running, as you can see, just in a terminal on my computer. And so I'll be doing something else. I might even be recording a podcast, and I have Claude Code running in the background, and then I just go back and check on it periodically. All right, so it says that the setup script ran successfully. It's going to start up a development instance, and it has got that development instance starting. Now, I mentioned I will often be doing other things. You can actually now set up hooks in Claude Code. So Claude will, if you have it configured right, ding, make a little sound on your terminal whenever it needs you. But you can also set up hooks and use a notification server, for instance, is what I've set up, to where I actually get a notification on my phone or on my desktop that says, hey, Claude Code's finished and it's waiting on you. And that way I know, okay, go back and check and see what Claude has done. And that's important because sometimes Claude will come back within 60 seconds with either a solution or a question. Sometimes, like in this case, especially the way I prompted it and said, don't ask me questions, just get this done. It's been running for over 10 minutes without stopping. I have another long-running Claude Code task over here on this computer, actually, that y'all can't see, for a production project. And this one's been running for about 25 minutes without needing any input from me yet. It's updating quite a bit of documentation on that one. All right, so it is now installing creating a Rubik's Cube themed storefront for us. It's interesting, it hasn't opened in new browser windows in a while. So let's see what it comes up with. Really curious to see the design. There are some agentic LLMs out there that are really good at front-end work. I would say that Claude Code's been okay. It depends a lot on the model. Opus is definitely better than Sonnet, and Opus 4, the newest model, is much better than some of the older ones, but it's still not great. Sometimes I will actually use other LLMs to do design work and then bring that work back to Claude. And if this was a full real project, I would be doing a lot more prep work. I would be creating task files and working with Claude back and forth to refine those task files, I would have already created the file structure, got it in a GitHub, and really gone back and forth on making sure there's lots of good background information in the repo. And that is an interesting change. Like a lot of agencies at Creativity, we've used Confluence and other tools, wikis, things like that, to have a lot of project documentation. So when you're working on a project, you might have Jira up, you might have Confluence up, and then you have your IDE and you're doing your coding. Well, in order to make it easier for the LLMs, it's really better to store a lot of that information in the project. And I'm a huge fan of Markdown files and Markdown in general. And so I'm actually pretty excited that I don't have to go to Confluence anymore. We're just putting all of this into the project repo, allowing the LLMs and the human developers to be able to view it all from their IDE and not have to go back and forth as much. All right, so it has been working on the brand colors, creating a tailwind configuration, creating a header. I am actually really curious and a little scared to see what this front end looks like. I've had some of these where it does beautiful, amazing work, and then I've had some where it's like line art and it is not pretty. I probably could have prompted it better than just saying make it look like the current site, but let's see what it comes up with. So it's built a header. Now it's building a footer. It's going to add some icons. And it is still clodding, as it says down here. My other instance it's running on this other computer actually says it's noodling on this documentation. So I think they tried to add a little bit of fun there. And let's see how my usage is going. So still trending within limits. It is crazy if you are familiar with the way LLMs work and the whole concept of tokens, that in the past, 3 hours, I have used 25 million tokens. That's a lot. For those of you that aren't as familiar with LLMs, typically, roughly, one word equals one token. It's not a one-to-one exact match. Tokens are how LLMs think. They don't think in words. But that means that between what input I've given to Claude Code and what output it has produced, there's been 25 million tokens, or roughly 25 million words that have crossed through the system. Crazy. All right, so it has added those icons, and now it is creating a home page. Within this session, which is at almost 1,000 seconds, we've used about 20,000 tokens. Where did the Rubik's Cube come from? Let's see, did it get that off of the... I'm curious if it got that off the existing site or if it... Okay, it did. Every once in a while, it will actually create brand new copy for a brand, which this is using the same models. They are refined for the coding instance or coding use case, but it's the same models that if you go to Anthropic's website and use Claude directly, same models. So it has the same capabilities to write copy and text. It's just not really tuned for that. I do know some authors and researchers, though, that actually do use Claude Code for non-coding situations where they will actually use Claude Code to write. So it is possible. All right, we're creating a hero section. We're creating a product grid. We're creating a product page. And again, if you haven't listened to or watched the full episode, my thesis is that, and this actually came from one of the founders of Medusa who first posted this on LinkedIn. He said, hey, Shopify, according to some research, according to Built With, Shopify's numbers are actually dropping. Their market share is actually contracting. And the theory that Nicholas Gellner of Medusa has is that Claude Code and these other agentic LLMs, they can stand up a site using Medusa. They can't stand up a site using Shopify. I literally, this site that we're building, copyright laws aside, and the fact that I don't own the Rubik's Cube brand, I could actually tell Claude Code, make this a live site. And it would probably, hopefully, need me to buy a domain name, but outside of that, it could literally do it. And it can't do that with Shopify. I couldn't tell it, make me a Shopify site, and then it do everything start to finish. So it's a renaissance of open source e-commerce, which I find super exciting as someone that was around for the early days of Magento open source and even some of the open source platforms that were really popular before that, way back when. All right, so we are working on our product detail page now. And if this wasn't about to all be deleted, I would probably censor out these API keys. Rest assured, by the time you're watching this, I have already deleted these containers and this code. Starting up the development server again. Yeah, it's interesting. It said that, perfect, this storefront is now running at this URL, but I saw that all this is in red and it says timed out. So I don't think it actually is. And this is actually an example of what you can do. Oh yeah, and it says, I'm done. I'm successful. Are you? So you can actually interrupt it. You can hit escape, or if you don't want to interrupt it, you can go ahead and just type your message and hit enter. And the next time it comes up for error, it'll read your message. But I hit escape, told it to stop. I just went to that URL and it can't connect to the server. Earlier in the history, I see an error when you ran npm run dev. Please, before you say you are done, check your work. And this is where normally I would have an agents.md file, which is basically just an instructions file. It's a README file for agentic coding LLMs. And I would have certain rules in there that I've learned, such as before you tell me you're done, check your work. So I'll tell it, check your work, pull up the site using one of your tools and make sure it loads and meets the requirements. So it ran for, about 15, 20 minutes on the initial build before stopping and asking for, or telling me that it was done. Here's all the things, by the way, it says that it completed. It says it has the brand colors integrated, a responsive theme and design, a hero section with their make your move tagline, product grid with filtering, product detail pages, variant selections, newsletter sign up, social links. Be interesting to see if it really did do all that. And if so, then in under 30 minutes and for the cost of a $20 a month Claude Code subscription, I have a new Medusa e-commerce site. And it is operating my Chrome browser. Oh, that doesn't look good. This may be one of those instances where defining it a little bit better or throwing it a little away faster and starting over might have worked out better. So it has a cores issue. It has a failure trying to fetch the products from the back end. And this is where anyone can use something like Claude Code, but being a developer, being able to do even just junior developer level troubleshooting can really help. I'm going to give Claude a chance to figure this out on its own, but if it doesn't, then I may at least point it to some of these browser console errors I am seeing. It does seem like it got everything in here. It just doesn't have the products and it doesn't have the actual design, probably due to that cores issue. So it got a new API key. And I've never actually built a site in Medusa before, so this is all new to me. I understand the concepts, but yeah, haven't done this before, so it's exciting to be able to play with a new and different platform without having to spend days or weeks trying to learn it. And it actually is checking the browser console. I haven't always seen it do that, but it's nice that this time out it says, yes, we have a cores issue. And this is where having those MCP servers installed and allowing it to use a tool like Playwright really helps. It has some basic web navigation and web searching capabilities Claude Code does without MCP servers, but taking the time, and it doesn't take long at all, to set up some of these MCP servers to give it more capabilities definitely helps. It is now restarting. Wow, the cookie secret is super secret. Nice. Again, before going into production, there's a lot of security hardening you're going to want to do with any LLM-generated code or storefront. I am not a lawyer, and so I would say be careful. Don't just rush out there and actually go to production from Claude Code, but I know some of you are doing it. It is restarting the Medusa environments, and then we will see what happens. Oh, no more cores issues. Some sample Medusa products are in here now. That's great. Medusa shorts. Cheap shorts, too. I see only the default Medusa products are showing. Let me take a final screenshot to show the current state. This means the original seed data is still there. So basically the original Medusa data, it was loaded instead of the Rubik's Cube data. I'm going to go ahead, as I mentioned before, you can type to it even while it's working. So I'm going to say, while you are fixing it so that the Rubik's products here, please also fix the design. I'm not sure if there's errors. but I don't see the Rubik's brand colors experience setting built. And so you'll see that'll just stay in gray here until the next time it stops or the next time it's a good opportunity to basically interrupt it. And then it will add that and react to that basically. While we wait, one other thing about the Claude Code environment, at the bottom you'll see it says context left until auto compaction 4%. All LLMs have a context window, basically the maximum size of what they can keep in their memory at a time. Claude's is pretty big, not as big as Gemini. Google's Gemini is known for having the largest context window, so it can handle a lot more. Unfortunately, their competing tool, Gemini CLI, is not nearly as good as Claude Code. The underlying LLM might be better, but the actual like agentic workflows don't work great. But what this means is basically as we use up more and more of the memory that the LLM has, at some point it's going to have to stop and compact everything it's done so far. So it'll actually go through all of this because it's keeping all of this in its memory. Everything it's done, everything we've talked about, all the code it's looked at, it will go through all of that and it will summarize it and then only store the summary and throw the rest away. That allows it to keep working without stopping, but that also means that some of the things I told it earlier in the conversation, it may not remember as well, or it may not remember at all. The other thing that you might see is actually it stopped, it got confused. So I'm just going to say, please continue fixing the site. Make sure Rubik's products appear and their branding and brand colors, and that it's a user-friendly experience. That delights. Probably not how I would usually define it. Oh, and I got another error. So this may be a case where Claude managed to break itself. And given that we are out of context as well, I'm actually going to quit. And then I'm going to start Claude Code up again in a brand new fresh session. Before I do that, we'll look. So it has created both the front end and the back end in this directory. I'm going to start up Claude Code. I'm going to say this project is a proof of concept for a Medusa.js powered site or fix. I can spell. Wix.com. The previous developer got a halfway done and then quit. But it doesn't have to know it's the previous developer. The Rubik's Cube products aren't appearing. Sample Medusa products are. Is also supposed to be graphically appealing, and the Rubik's products doesn't. Please fix it. No need for shipping or methods. This is just a demo proof of subsite. Always check your work before telling done. Use all of tools. Context 7. Gemini. Use Subagents work in parallel to finish as quickly as possible. So you can directly tell it to use Subagents. It doesn't always do that, and it doesn't always do it parallel. I've seen some coding demos where people got it to do 7 or 8 subagents in parallel, which makes it so much faster. Doesn't always do that. But the one advantage of subagents, even if they're not in parallel, is I was talking about the context earlier, the working memory, and subagents don't fill up the main working memory. They only fill up their own individual subagent memory and then just return whatever specific things the main agent needs to know and add to its memory. So since I don't have an agent's MD file, which I probably could have created one before I exited the previous session, it's having to learn the project structure from scratch. I'm actually going to tell it after you learn the project structure, have a subject create the agents.md file for us. Future agents can get up to speed faster. And this is where a best practice that I've learned is work in very small chunks. So I probably could have done this a lot faster if I first had it install like just one command, install Medusa, another command, create an agents file, another command, here's the requirements, create a requirements file, another command, implement the backend, another command, implement the front end, versus do it all for me. And again, that's where if you are an experienced developer, you can get more out of these tools when you remember to do it the right way by knowing how to think through software engineering and break projects up in steps like that. So it's creating that agentsmd file that I asked it to create. Once it's created, please some agents to execute your remaining. And my other Claude Code instance that's been running this whole time is now up to, let's see, 50 minutes without needing any of my input. It is going through, like I said, a documentation update that is rather substantial. It's on the 16th task out of about 85. So this one's going to burn through some tokens for sure. And you can even see that I'm now up to a moderate level of a token burn rate. I'm burning 239,559 tokens every minute. I was actually a little nervous starting this demo for y'all while I was running this other task just because I really don't want to hit my limit, because once you hit that limit, it actually just tells you stop, and it will stop the running process. And in this case, the next window or next session starts at 1 p.m. That doesn't seem, yeah, 1 p.m. And so I'd have to wait till 1 p.m. to resume my work and resume this demo. Yeah, I told it to use Subagents. You can tell that it doesn't really seem to be using Subagents. I was hoping it would work on the brand colors and the products not appearing at the same time. It is not doing that. It's working on just the products not appearing. I joke with some friends and colleagues that are also exploring the cutting edge of agentic coding that lots of times working with Claude Code is just like working with a human developer. Doesn't always do what you tell it to do, argues with you sometimes. I've had Claude Code before when I tell it all of the tests must pass. It just deleted the tests that were failing. Definitely will try to take shortcuts. And I'm not saying that's what all developers do, but again, it almost feels human at times in how it will almost engage in malicious compliance or just in trying to get away with the bare minimum amount of work possible. And it's where prompting, having a good context, having a good agents.md, all of that can be so important. And just realizing, being very careful with the words you select. Again, if you tell it all tests must pass, but you don't say, and you can't delete any tests, or that you must use all of the existing tests and add new tests, then within the rules you've given it, deleting tests is fair game. All right, so it is still diagnosing the product display issues. It is running some scripts. It is reading some files. It's looking for some API keys. It is burning lots of tokens. You can see it's executing curl commands. I mean, anything that a developer could do at the command line, Claude Code could do. So it has a lot more power than I think most people realize. Also, I will edit this. I'm not going to edit for content, but I will speed up some of these breaks. I am at 42 minutes of recording this walkthrough. I was hoping this would be like a 15, 20-minute thing, but I won't make y'all sit through all 45 minutes live. Do not worry. Kind of curious to see if it even has the system running right now. It doesn't look promising. So I'm switching into the more detailed transcript. So I'm just kind of curious to see. It's strange to me that its curl command is taking so long. It should be. Just going to run this command myself, see what happens. Should take this. Oh. Yeah, command timed out after 2 minutes. It has really broken this. When I've had it build Magento open source sites this way for demos, it's a lot quicker than 45 minutes and having a broken site at the end. Again, I don't think this is anything necessarily about Claude Code or about Medusa. It's probably more about how I prompted it. I accidentally made a really good video warning about the importance of breaking your prompts down as small as possible into smaller steps and not trying to do everything all at once. Why is the connection to port 9000 timing out was working earlier? Thought? So it timed out and then it immediately tried the exact same or close to the same thing. Just like managing human developers sometimes. Oh, look, it timed out again. So it's trying to load the site. Something tells me it's going to time out after 2 minutes. Yep, timed out. Luckily, MCP server does not wait that long. At this point, I'm going to stop and take my own advice, and I'm going to show you all the right way to do this, hopefully. It's going to be really embarrassing if it doesn't work now. I'm exit. I am going to throw away all of this. RMRF, delete. Wow, a lot of files in there. All right, now I'm going to do this in smaller steps, and we're going to see what happens. Please run. Oh, before I start, I've been talking about MCP servers a lot. So here's what I have installed right now. Browser use, browser loop, context 7, Dino Playwright, fetch, Firecrawl, which is not currently working, Gemini CLI, a local rag, and 2 versions of Playwright, one specifically for Lighthouse for performance testing, Puppeteer, and sequential thinking. Now, we are specifying a new project. Please help me plan out a successful quick implementation of demo site, latest version of Medusa.js, execute to replace their existing site. Use www or not? They do. For now, let's write file rules for agentic building LLMs, a successful building site. Please search online for best practices for agents.md files and for Medusa.js projects, and ask Gemini, but then agents.md file. So it's doing a web search now. Agents.md best practices. I actually have some agents.md files I could use, but a lot of those have proprietary things for specific projects. That's why I'm going to have Claude Code write us a new one. Schlepping this time. This is what it's doing. Claude loves to have fun. My other instance of Claude Code is still noodling. If you're experimenting with Claude Code and you haven't experimented with using Gemini in Claude Code, I highly recommend it. There's some MCP recipes you can find online to where you can install the Gemini CLI and then have Claude actually use Gemini via MCP. That is super powerful. That has actually worked better than just trying to use Gemini manually. And speaking of which, now it is going to ask Gemini for additional input. So it is prompting. So I prompted Claude Code and LLM, and now it is prompting another LLM, Gemini. And then based on the results, Claude Code may do something different or may just continue the plan that it had. It's crazy. Think about it. Yeah, and it's definitely overcomplicating this from looking at that prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and say, keep this very simple. Single agent less. It's a demo sim. No need to worry about we will add SEO and then accessibility and future phases. USD only, no multi-currency. Very simple site. Keep it simple. And this is one of the reasons that doing individual tasks like this can work so much better than having to do the whole thing at once. Because I can actually react and say, okay, I can tell already that you're overcomplicating it. Let's make it simple and give it some feedback. And Gemini's feedback in that case was not great. Oh, I thought it said celebrating, but it's cerebrating, thinking, basically. They couldn't just say think, could they? I think somebody found in the Claude Code command line interface code where all of those terms are actually predefined. And it's a pretty cheesy list. Somebody on the Claude Code team is having fun with that, I think. So, all right. So it wrote out a 458 line agents MD file, and now it's simplifying it. The agents.md file can be long. It's just the project itself. I'm not even fix that typo there. Project itself is to be the simple that it. Another typo. Sorry about that. Yeah. Agents. Wow. So now I'm going to tell it to launch a subagent to review Rubix.com existing website and produce a markdown document that contains the color scheme, design, guidelines, pages needed, content for the pages, product data, everything we need in order to build it. While doing that, launch another sub agent to define individual tasks in a to-do.md file for the smallest atomic steps that sense to build basic usage site. Break it down to small individual steps that can be split among agents and that can be tested. Wow, it deleted the entire agents.md file and replaced it with keep it simple. Again, be careful with the words and prompts that you use. So, and can be tested. Our goal is to complete this quickly by catching mistakes and errors as soon as they happen and building things step by step successfully. The best code is no code. The second best is the code that Medusa.js already wrote for you. That is an interesting, kind of like that philosophy. It sounds like something out of a fortune cookie, but I like it. You're also seeing the results of a stop file that I have. So I have a notification set that actually, when Claude says it's done, this notification hook will go to Gemini and say, review everything Claude just did and tell Claude if it is or isn't done. So it's saying in this case, it's not done. And I'm actually going to stop that. And I'm getting a warning from Anthropic that I'm approaching my usage limit. So hopefully we can get this done before I run out. It says it's going to launch 2 subagents to work on these tasks in parallel. Let's see. Oh, it actually is. So it's going to create the to-do file and it's going to analyze the existing site in 2 separate instances or tasks. You can see that it actually clicked the accept cookies button to get past that banner to make more screenshots. It's nice. So it created the to-do.md file. Wow. Yeah, I can see that it actually created a task for Stripe payments. So I'll go back and tell it it doesn't need that. It's a lot of tasks that it created. It definitely took me seriously when I said do it in very small steps. Noticed in to-do.do Stripe setup to on going to set up payments or demo payments. Don't anything or shipping. Yeah, the agents.md file it created is not bad. Keep it simple. Simplicity first. Nice. You got that message. All right, so we're still waiting on that subagent that was analyzing the design of the existing site. My other task for my production project over here that has about 80 documentation tasks is up to task 24. That one may actually take all day, but it is referring to about 15 different meetings that we've had and a lot of project specific information to update this documentation. So it would probably be a multi-day process for a human developer or human project manager to do this. So it's nice to be able to delegate it to Claude. All right, so the 2 things have been created, the Rubik site analysis and the atomic task breakdown. It is now reacting to where I told it we don't need the payment information. It should be. I'm going to go ahead and say, please, I'm going to let the first task and the file test it and make sure it's done. I don't think it ever removed that payment task like I asked it to. Yep. So I'm actually going to delete the entire checkout flow tasks. And I'm going to delete the functional testing because we don't need those for this demo. Once the task is done, then complete the next task, then verify it's done, and mark it's done. All right, so it's verified that Node is installed. It's checking to make sure that Docker is available and that we have the right things set up in Docker that we'll need. And my other agent over here actually needs input, so I'll give it some real quick while Claude continues to work on setting up the Docker containers. And now it's discovering what the previous agent did, creating Docker containers already, removing those, starting new ones. All right. I'm going to move on to the next task. And now for my next prompt, once it finishes this task, I'm going to tell it to do all of the tasks. All right, so I'm going to say now we're in the entire task list. Go one task at a time. It is very important that tests work from supporting, including test, including, call it graphical testing using web browsers or before marking a that's done. And all right, so now I've asked it to go through the entire lists, and it is fun. Claude will give time estimates, and I don't know what it's based on, but it said, for instance, this task it's doing right now is a 15-minute task, and it finished it in 2 minutes. Sometimes it'll say something will be an 8-hour task, I'll finish it in 20 minutes. Sometimes it'll say it's an hour-long task, and it never figures it out. So, always fun. It's discovering, like the last agent did, that the Medusa setup script is an interactive process, so it's creating a script to handle it. Looking good on our token usage, despite the warnings down here. And it is now puttering according to its status. Fun. At this rate, I may have to pause the recording, go have lunch, but I'm going to definitely see this through so that y'all can see a completed Medusa site. I say completed. I was originally going to do the shipping, payment, and checkout process just to show how they can do that, but no one wants to watch a 2-hour-long video. So I'm going to keep it simple. All right, so it has created the new Medusa project using the command line tools, and it's moving on to the next to-do. And things like that to-do file are a good way to handle the context window issues I talked about earlier, where the working memory of the LLM gets too full. Now, even if it gets too full and it maybe compacts some things out that we don't want it to, it can look at that to-do file and it will remind it of what's already been done and what it said it was going to do next. So it's a good way to persist that data across sessions and across memory compaction. All right, it's running the initial database migrations. I know the previous attempt, it had issues with that, but seems to be working this time. Oh, nope. It tried to go to a directory or a script that doesn't even exist because it was already in the backend directory. It looks, yep, it even said, I'm already in the backend directly. Let me run the migrations direct. And its knowledge is out of date, so it used a command from Medusa version 1. It then realized that, said the correct command for V2 is different. Let me use the correct command. And this is where I would probably do some more context engineering and edit the agent's file, remind it that we're using Medusa V2, ask it to confirm with Context 7 and its other tools that it's using V2 commands and a V2 approach. All right, so it finished the initial database migrations. They ran successfully, and it's going to the next to do. Oh, updating the environment variable for cores. So it's actually catching that before it tries to run the site, which again, that shows you how it's not always the same each time you run it. The last agent, the last Claude Code run we did, that first one, didn't set the cores variables and had those cores errors. So it verified the backend server is running. It's checking the admin panel, and it says it's going to try to use the admin panel to set up the region data. It's typing in that username and password that it created, and that username and password is not correct, even though it says it created it. Using that great password again, super secret. Scary that Claude seems to have a default password that it likes to use called super secret. Makes me want to check how many sites out there in production are using the password super secret. Doing all right on tokens still. And now you see why typically I'm running multiple Claude Code projects or tasks and doing so in the background, because it's a lot of waiting around if you actually watch this in real time. Never actually recorded anything this long with Descript before. Really hoping I don't hit some sort of account limit or file size limit. This is going to get interesting. I'm going to give it one more attempt, and then I'm going to tell it to stop trying to log in via the admin panel. Please do this via a script. Oh, now the password is testpass123. What's secure? Hey, that worked. Oh, that password is found in a data breach. Imagine that. So it's going to set up the US region. And at this rate, this is going to be a 2-hour long recording experience. So I'm actually going to pause the recording here and do this. I would do a normal Claude Code project. I will come back when it's done and give y'all a recap at the end of the video. So stay tuned. Hey, everybody. I almost want to cut in. For some reason, I'm thinking of SpongeBob SquarePants. 2 days later. Literally coming to you 2 days later. It didn't actually take Claude Code that long, but it took a while. And I'm still going to release this. I'm going to show y'all what Claude Code did, and then I'm going to use this as a chance to also talk a little bit about pitfalls with agentic coding LLMs like Claude Code. So first of all, here is a Medusa site. You have to take my word for it. I did not record everything that Claude was doing because I needed to use my computer. Imagine that. But Claude did build this site, warts and all. It's definitely not perfect, but it is running Medusa. It has the Rubik's Cube products on it. Some of them are in stock, some of them are out of stock. It has options you can select. So a very basic site for sure, but really zero human intervention, zero human development here. Every line of code, every action that was taken were all taken by Claude Code. Definitely had to go back and correct it a lot. Hit some new issues I've actually never seen in Claude Code before, where it got tripped up on the contents of images. I think they're doing some things security-wise around images to try to avoid prompt injections and other possible nefarious actions. But yeah, so the actual, you can see Claude's been working a lot. But it did build a working website using the Medusa open source e-commerce framework. It could modify it. It could do all sorts of things from here. It did not set it up quite as quickly and easily as some of the posts on LinkedIn would make you think. It definitely was a little bit of a struggle. Honestly, I then went back and tried this using the Windsurf IDE, which is another approach and another method for doing AI assisted coding. Had a lot more success there. I actually got a site up and running in the space of about an hour using Medusa. So it's interesting. I do think in this case, it's not necessarily Claude Code's fault. It's probably the way I prompted it and approached it. And along those lines, on other projects, what I'm doing is I'm making sure that I always use a Git repo, typically on GitHub. And I am always doing things in very small written tasks and in branches. And I do one branch, I test it, I merge it, and then I move on to the next thing. So if someone tells you that AI can out of the box, just one click, one prompt, launch a website for you, probably not true. But what is true is with the right prompting, with the right context engineering, the right AI engineering, basically behind using these tools, you can very quickly build an e-commerce website, including on a platform that you haven't worked on before, especially if that platform is an open source platform where the AI has full control and full access to all of the code. So it's an interesting new world that we're all living in. And the craziest thing is, I suspect By the time this video goes up in just a few days, it'll already be obsolete. I'm sure that OpenAI or Anthropic will have some big announcement, but if they do, I will be back with more videos, and I hope that I'm going to go back, by the way, and if you're watching this, you already know this. The actual recording time, though, is about 90 minutes. I don't want y'all to have to watch 90 minutes of this. So I'm going to go back and actually using another AI and a tool called Descript, try to accelerate any time that I'm not actually talking so that maybe we can get this down to a 5-10 minute video that still gives you an idea of how this process worked. Been some other interesting conversations on LinkedIn around agentic AI coding, and I would definitely encourage you find me on LinkedIn. My name is Joshua Warren. I have a Creativity Gold background behind my headshot, and it mentions actually on my bio that I'm the author of the new book, the e-commerce growth playbook rather. So if you find that Joshua Warren, that is me. Send me a message or comment on some of my posts. Share with me your successes, your struggles, and what things are looking like for you with these agentic coding systems like Claude Code. And that's how we're all going to get better at using this to deliver better and faster sites for our clients. Thanks, and good luck on this wild frontier of AI coding.